My name is Grace Sullivan, and I'm 32. By day, I'm a union electrician working on high rise construction sites across Chicago. But by night, I'm G.S. North, a songwriter, an indie folk artist whose melodies come from hours of quiet, isolated creation. It's a life I've built bit by bit, stone by stone, the kind of life that doesn't get celebrated in a room full of people who can't see past their own wealth. That night at Marcus's family dinner was the first time I realized just how far apart our worlds really were. We were at this extravagant country club in Winnetka for his sister Bella's big promotion dinner, the kind of event where every woman is dripping in expensive jewelry, and every man's suit could probably feed a small family. Marcus looked great, of course, in his sharp tailored blazer. I, on the other hand, felt like a fish out of water. I was in my one good button-down shirt, the one I wear to dress up, and a pair of jeans I thought were a little too casual. But it was fine. I was used to feeling like the outsider. The worst part? The whole night was filled with awkward small talk, forced smiles, and the lingering, quiet judgment that came from being the only one there who wasn't wearing a Rolex. I wanted to just disappear. We sat down at the long table, candles flickering across the white linen. I tried to focus on Marcus, but his parents, especially his mom, were busy talking to him about work, their latest social gathering, the family's business empire. I couldn't help but feel out of place. I could feel their eyes flicking to me every time I spoke. Did I sound unpolished? Was my voice too rough compared to their elegant tones? But then, as if it couldn't get worse, Marcus's mom, Denise, decided to take the spotlight. She asked about my work, trying to be polite. I didn't mind. It was the least she could do after giving me that cold smile when I walked in. I told her about my day job, union work, the gritty stuff. Electricians weren't glamorous, but we built the cities they lived in. I'm also a musician, I added quietly, almost expecting the laughter before I even finished the sentence. Marcus chimed in before I could go further, a half-hearted attempt at being funny. Yeah, Grace is 32 and still spending money on demos. We call her our weekend rock star. His voice, casual and light, made it seem like he was making a joke, but I could see his mother's eyes glint with amusement, and I felt that all too familiar sting in my chest. The chuckles began almost immediately, from Marcus's father, Victor, who I could tell was just trying to be polite, to Bella, whose smile was tight but indulgent. It wasn't funny, but I forced a laugh, a shaky thing, as my stomach dropped to the floor. Victor added, almost too cheerfully, "At least she's handy around the house. Music doesn't pay for mortgages, you know." More chuckling followed. I could feel my face turning red. It was like they thought I couldn't hear them. They didn't realize how sharp those words cut through me. But they didn't care either. They didn't see me. Not really. I just took a sip of my water and held my breath. One day, I thought, one day they'll know. They'll all know. The worst part was how Marcus just sat there, watching it all unfold, not saying a word. I could see the unease flicker in his eyes, but it passed quickly, replaced by that familiar, polite smile. He didn't want to rock the boat. It wasn't the first time I'd been made to feel small in front of his family. He'd never intentionally humiliated me, but there were times when his indifference stung worse than anything they said. "I'll get there," I said, a little too loudly, trying to regain some control. "One day they'll all see." But instead of the comforting nod I expected from Marcus, all I got was that easy laugh of his, the kind he always used to brush off uncomfortable moments. "Yeah, Grace, one day," he repeated. "You'll get there." I stared at him for a moment, searching for something in his eyes, some sign that he understood how much it hurt, that he knew the weight of his family's words. But his gaze flicked to his phone, distracted. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't been willing to admit to myself before. He wasn't embarrassed by me. He just didn't understand. He didn't get why I poured everything into this dream of mine. They didn't know that just 2 weeks before this dinner, I'd signed a $95,000 sync deal for a song I'd been working on for years. My unreleased track, North of Kin, had been picked up by a major premium cable drama for their upcoming season trailer. They didn't know that while they laughed at my basement demos, I was sitting on a fortune that was about to change everything. I didn't tell Marcus, not yet. Maybe I should have, but something told me that when I did, it wouldn't matter. I could still hear their laughter echoing in my head long after the dinner ended. The drive home was quiet, tense. I tried to talk about something, anything, to bridge the distance between us. But Marcus was distracted by his phone, scrolling through social media, completely oblivious to the quiet rage bubbling inside me. When we got home, I went straight to bed. He kissed me on the cheek before he went to the kitchen, his usual nonchalant self. I pulled the blankets over my head, trying to drown out the memory of the dinner, of the people who didn't understand me. I could feel the weight of the words I didn't say, the anger I had hidden for so long. One day, I thought again. One day, they'll know. But for now, I stayed quiet. I stayed silent because I wasn't sure if the truth would even matter. And I wasn't sure I wanted to share this moment with someone who thought so little of what I do. I didn't sleep the night after that dinner. I lay there in the dark beside Marcus, watching the faint blue light from his phone glow and fade on the wall as he scrolled himself to sleep. My brain kept replaying the clinking of wine glasses, the sound of Denise's laugh, Victor's smug, "Music doesn't pay mortgages," and Marcus's easy, oblivious grin when he called me their weekend rock star. Weekend rock star. I stared at the ceiling and thought about the email that had changed everything. 2 weeks before that dinner, I got a message from a woman named Ria, an assistant music supervisor I'd met almost a year ago at some tiny showcase in a cramped Chicago venue. At the time, she'd asked for my card, told me she liked my writing, that my lyrics felt cinematic. I'd heard compliments before, but most people meant them as a kindness, like patting a child on the head. Ria wasn't like that. Her email subject line was simple: North of Kin licensing offer. My hands actually shook when I opened it. She'd forwarded a formal proposal from the music department of a premium cable drama I loved, one of those moody, award-winning shows that people write think pieces about. They wanted to license my unreleased song, North of Kin, for the trailer of their upcoming season. The sync fee alone was $95,000. I read it 3 times, then checked the sender address just to make sure it wasn't a scam. No, it was real. The deal terms were clear and professional. They needed master and publishing rights. I owned both. I'd spent years doing the unglamorous, boring stuff, filling out forms, registering compositions, making sure my ass was covered legally, even when no one cared who I was. A part of me wanted to run straight into the living room where Marcus was watching some sports recap, jump on his lap and scream, "We did it! We made it!" But another part of me froze. I could already imagine the scene. His family's smirks, Marcus's easy chuckles, all the times I was told to be realistic. I thought about Denise's voice in my head. Music doesn't pay mortgages. What would they say if they knew that, in one email, music had just out-earned months of my construction work? So instead of shouting, I forwarded the email to my personal account, closed my laptop, and walked into the living room like nothing had happened. Marcus looked up from his phone. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. "Just tired." He patted the cushion next to him. "Come sit. They're doing a replay of the Bears game." I sat beside him, and for the next hour, my life was split in two. On the surface, I was the tired electrician girlfriend watching football. Underneath, I was the songwriter whose life had just quietly changed. 2 days later, after back and forth with Ria and a quick consultation with an entertainment lawyer she recommended, I signed. I set up a separate bank account and watched the numbers appear like something out of a dream. And I told no one, not Marcus, not my friends, not my family. It felt like holding a lit match in a room soaked with gasoline. I didn't trust anyone not to mishandle it. The trailer dropped on a Monday night, 3 weeks after that country club dinner. I knew the exact airtime because Ria had sent the schedule like some sort of sacred document. Premiere trailer between second and third quarter of the game. I pretended it was just another evening. Marcus was at the gym late, then said he'd stop for a drink with a coworker. I went home, showered the construction dust off my skin, and sat on the couch in an old t-shirt, heart pounding. I wasn't watching the game on cable. I was streaming it on my laptop so I could record audio cleanly if I needed it. When the commentators cut to a commercial, my palms went cold. And then I heard it. My own voice, threading through the speakers over a dimmed, slow-motion courtroom scene. I built a house out of promises, watched every window shake. The show's main character stared down an opponent across a polished conference table, while my chorus swelled underneath. The mix was warmer than my demo, the strings fuller, but it was my song, my melody, my words. I sat there with my hand over my mouth, eyes stinging. When the trailer ended, they flashed the card. Music, North of Kin. Written and performed by G.S. North, my alias, on national TV. A second later, my phone buzzed. Then again, and again. The Lane family group chat lit up on my screen. "Bella, OMG, this song in the trailer? I have chills. Denise, that voice. That's what real talent sounds like. So emotional. Victor, production is on another level. This is the kind of music that actually goes somewhere. I stared at the screen, my chest tight. Production is on another level. Like my little basement wasn't where I recorded that very track. Marcus finally chimed in. Marcus, whoever GS North is, respect. This is the kind of sound Grace always aims for. Always aims for. My throat closed up. I typed and erased 3 different responses before I finally sent. Me. Sometimes those artists start in basements. No one answered that. I watched the chat continue to gush about the show, the cast, how tasteful the soundtrack was. They played amateur critic while my voice kept slipping into the background during each replayed trailer. Marcus came home an hour later, throwing his gym bag down and collapsing beside me. Hey, he said, kissing my cheek. You catch that trailer everyone's freaking out about? I looked at him, trying to see some sign of recognition, some glimmer of connection between the woman on this couch and the voice in that trailer. Yeah, I replied softly. I heard it. He grabbed his phone and pulled up the group chat, scrolling. Right, that singer. I mean, that's what I've been trying to tell you. There's a difference between hobbyists and pros. But who knows, babe? With the right guidance, you could get there eventually. He said it kindly, casually, like he was encouraging me. And somehow that hurt more than if he'd just outright mocked me. I didn't say anything. I just nodded, feeling the ground shift underneath us. It wasn't that he wanted me to fail. It was that he genuinely couldn't imagine I might already have succeeded. That night, I couldn't sleep again. So I did what people do when their lives feel too big to hold alone. I opened my laptop and wrote. I ended up on Reddit, of all places, anonymous, late-night confession central. I found one of those relationship subs, a place where strangers pour out their messiest stories and ask, am I crazy? My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long time. Then I started typing. He is 32 and still spending money on demos. I put the sentence in quotation marks, the line from dinner, the line that had burned into my memory like a scar. I wrote about the country club, the laughter, Marcus's joke, Denise's mortgage comment. I wrote about being a union electrician who writes songs in the quiet hours after work, about filing copyrights no one believed I needed, about Rhea, the email, the $95,000 sync deal. I explained how the trailer aired during the game, how Marcus's entire family worshipped my song while calling its creator real talent, someone who clearly studied at Berkeley or some prestigious music school. I wrote, I watched all of this from our couch with my boyfriend sitting right next to me. He spent months telling me to be realistic, that my basement demos were a nice hobby but not a path. Tonight, his mom said music doesn't pay mortgages, while my song literally played over the show they were all obsessing over. My hands were shaking as I continued. He doesn't know I'm GS North. His family doesn't know. They've made sure I know exactly how little they think of my dream. Now that it's real, part of me wants to drag them into the living room, replay the trailer, and point at the screen. Another part of me wants to disappear and never let them claim 1 second of this with me. I don't even know if I want to share this success with someone who laughed when I tried. What would you do? When I finished, I stared at the blinking cursor. I almost deleted the whole thing. Instead, I hit post. As the thread went live, a strange calm slid over me. For the first time, the story wasn't trapped in my head or bouncing around the Lane family dining room. It was out there, messy, anonymous, vulnerable, but real. I closed the laptop, lay back on my pillow, and listened to the city hum outside my window. My phone buzzed one last time before I finally drifted off. A notification from my bank app. Incoming deposit, $94,250 after fees, taxes withheld. Music doesn't pay mortgages, Denise had said. I fell asleep thinking, it might just pay for my freedom. I couldn't stop looking at my phone the next morning. I had spent half the night tossing and turning, replaying the events of the previous day over and over in my mind. I should have felt elated. This was my big break, the kind of success I had been working toward for years. But there was this nagging sensation in the pit of my stomach, something I couldn't shake. Why couldn't I share this moment with Marcus? He was already awake when I got up, sitting at the kitchen counter, sipping his coffee and scrolling through his emails. His casual demeanor was a sharp contrast to my restless energy. It was like we were living in parallel universes, me, on the edge of a new chapter, and him, still stuck in his old views. I didn't say anything at first. What could I say? I just signed a $95,000 deal. Oh, and by the way, the song is mine, not some real artist's. It felt like an admission of defeat, like I was betraying everything I'd worked so hard to keep hidden. The truth was, I hadn't told Marcus about the deal. There was no time, no space, and I knew it wasn't the kind of moment I could simply drop on him without consequences. But I wasn't prepared for what came next. Marcus's phone buzzed, and he glanced down at it, his face stiffening for a moment. I noticed the change, that subtle shift in his posture, but didn't say anything. He read the text, set his phone down with a quiet exhale, and stood up. "Grace, we need to talk," he said. The tone in his voice immediately set off alarms in my head. I knew that tone. It was the one he used when things were about to get complicated. I followed him into the living room, and that's when I saw them. His parents sitting on the couch like they were ready for some kind of intervention. They looked too calm, too composed for the situation, and the professional lawyer sitting next to them made it all the more unsettling. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. Marcus's mother, Denise, spoke first. Her voice was sickeningly sweet, but there was an edge to it. "Grace, we've been talking," she said, "about your song." "I assume you've heard about the trailer," I replied, trying to sound casual, but the irritation in my voice slipped out before I could control it. Denise exchanged a look with Victor, her husband. "We've heard it," she said, her smile now tight. "And it's remarkable, Grace. Really. But you see, Marcus and I were talking, and we think it's only fair that we discuss the details." Marcus shifted uncomfortably on the couch, avoiding my gaze. I felt the sting of betrayal rise in my chest. "Details?" I echoed. Marcus's father, Victor, leaned forward. "This song," he said, his voice suddenly much more serious, "it's clearly inspired by your relationship with Marcus, yes?" I stared at him, momentarily speechless. What did they think this was? "That's a violation of intellectual property, Grace," he continued. "You've used our son's personal experiences for commercial gain, and frankly, that's not just emotional exploitation, it's legal. Marcus deserves recognition for his role in the creation of this song." I blinked, trying to process what he was saying. This couldn't be real. "This song is about me," Marcus said, his voice almost apologetic. "It's about our time together, Grace. Don't you think I deserve some credit? At least a percentage of the royalties?" I shook my head, feeling my pulse quicken. They were actually serious. I stood up, pacing the room, trying to keep my breath steady. "Are you saying you think you're entitled to my royalties because you think the song is about you?" Denise spoke up again. "Well, not just that, Grace. You've been living here together. You've built this relationship, and that kind of emotional investment gives him the right to claim part ownership. Legally, it's a shared contribution." My head was spinning. It felt like they were pulling a card from some business playbook I didn't even know existed. But there was one thing I was sure of. They had no idea what they were talking about. I turned to the lawyer, who had been silently observing the conversation. His fingers were tapping on his notebook, his gaze cold and calculating. He looked at me like I was a puzzle he was about to solve. "I don't think you understand the implications of this," he said smoothly. "Marcus has a legitimate claim. Given the personal nature of the song, it's considered a joint property, something created during cohabitation." "What?" I hissed. I felt like the room was closing in on me. Marcus, his parents, and the lawyer, all sitting there with their inflated sense of entitlement, telling me that my song, my art, wasn't mine anymore. "I've got every record of the writing sessions," I said, my voice shaking. "Everything was done solo, alone." I grabbed my laptop from the coffee table and opened the folder with the timestamps, the registration docs, the contracts. "I have every piece of proof showing that I've owned this song from day one." I handed the lawyer the files, watching as his face shifted from smug confidence to subtle confusion. He began flipping through the papers, his fingers pausing at every page. Marcus watched him with growing unease. "Grace," he started, but I cut him off. "No, Marcus, you don't get to do this." I pointed at the lawyer. "You want proof? Here it is." I turned to the family. "This song is mine, all of it, and no one gets to rewrite that." The silence that followed was thick with tension. The lawyer finally sighed, pulling his glasses off to rub his eyes. "You're right," he said reluctantly. "There's no legal standing for any claim here. All the rights are hers." Denise's face fell, but Victor wasn't done. "Well, there's still the emotional damages," he suggested, a thin smile curling at the corner of his lips. "Marcus has poured his heart into this relationship. Don't you think she owes him something for that?" I looked at Marcus. The hurt in his eyes was clear, but it didn't matter anymore. "No, Victor, I owe him nothing. This was my creation." I turned to Marcus, who had been silent, and finally I saw it. Underneath the shame, the guilt, the uncertainty, he understood. "Are you really going to back them on this?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer. I left the room then, not waiting for their response. I couldn't. I had spent too long watching them twist something pure into something ugly. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the feeling that Marcus was standing in their corner, just like he always had. The days after the intervention passed in a blur of tension and quiet contempt. I tried to act like everything was normal, but I knew things between Marcus and me had shifted. There was a coldness in the way he looked at me, like he wasn't sure who I was anymore. I couldn't blame him. After all, he'd just been handed a massive, unwelcome truth about the song that had become his family's latest obsession. But there was also something else in his eyes, something that made me feel like a stranger in my own life. I wanted to scream at him, ask why he hadn't stood up for me, but instead I stayed quiet, burying myself in work and the music that had started to feel like both my savior and my curse. I'd created something that was all mine, and yet the people I thought I could trust were trying to take it from me. And then things started to get complicated. It happened one morning, about a week after the confrontation with Marcus's family. I was sitting in the kitchen, sipping my coffee, when my phone buzzed with a notification. The message was from Rhea, the assistant music supervisor who had been handling my deal with the cable show. She'd been keeping an eye on things, guiding me through this strange new world of royalties and industry players. Grace, we've been getting a lot of interest in your song. It's blowing up. I've attached a media request from a major influencer. She wants to do a video featuring North of Kin. The name attached to the message caught my eye. Bella Lane. Wait a minute. I clicked on the link she'd sent. The influencer, Bella Lane, my boyfriend's sister, was posting a video with my song playing in the background, showing off the new makeup collection she was promoting. She was talking about the authenticity of the song, how it perfectly captured her own journey of self-discovery, as if it were something she had inspired. I blinked, staring at the screen in disbelief. Her voice was smooth and confident as she talked about how real the song felt. This track, it really speaks to me, and I want you all to listen to it. I'll link it below, of course. I watched as she waved around a branded makeup kit, all while my song swelled in the background. It was surreal. My mind was racing. She's using my song without permission. She's hijacking it for her brand. I jumped up and grabbed my laptop. I quickly pulled up my LLC's registration, my rights to the song, and the takedown notice I'd used before. With shaking hands, I typed out the notice and hit send. A few hours later, I received an email confirmation. Bella's video was taken down. She didn't respond directly, but I could imagine her reaction. The Lane family's arrogance had no bounds, and now they were crossing a line they couldn't come back from. It didn't take long for Marcus to find out. He sent me a text later that evening. Grace, Bella said you had her video removed? What the hell is going on? I felt a sharp pang in my chest. Here we go. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I stood in the living room, staring out the window. My emotions were a whirlwind. Marcus had no idea what he'd gotten himself into. All his family saw was the dollar signs attached to my work. But for them, this wasn't about art. It was about ownership, control. They wanted to own me and my music. Finally, I typed back. You know exactly what's going on, Marcus. Your sister used my song without permission. I've had enough of this, enough of them, enough of you. His response came quickly. Grace, don't do this. Don't push me away. That was it. It was always the same, him telling me not to make things harder, as if his family's treatment of me didn't matter, as if I was supposed to swallow my pride and play the role of the girlfriend they could laugh at and control. But I wasn't willing to let them take any more from me, not this time. The next morning, I received a call from Rhea. Her voice was a little more upbeat than I expected, considering everything that had been going on. You won't believe it, she said. Your song is trending on Twitter. North of Kin has been added to the top playlists for indie folk. Emma Swift, yes, that Emma Swift, posted a cover of it on her socials. It's going viral. I nearly dropped my coffee. What? I gasped. Yeah, 2 million views already. The industry's buzzing. We've got 3 major labels calling, and some agencies are interested in booking you for a tour. This is huge, Grace. I felt my heart race. A part of me wanted to scream, I told you so. But another part, the part that was exhausted from fighting for validation, just let the words sink in. It was happening. The world was hearing my song, and it was finally getting the recognition it deserved. But even as my music was being celebrated, the tension between Marcus and me only grew. He came home that night, his face drawn and exhausted. He didn't even look at me as he dropped his gym bag on the floor and collapsed on the couch. We need to talk, he said, his voice low. I crossed my arms, staring at him. I'm listening. Marcus turned to face me. Grace, I'm sorry. About everything. about my family, about the way I've been handling this. I was wrong, okay? For a moment, I almost believed him. Almost. But then his next words shattered that illusion. But Grace, they're family. They're my family, and I don't know how to fix all this. I don't know what you want me to do. I let out a bitter laugh. You want me to believe that now? After everything they've done? I don't know how to fix it, but I want to try. I stared at him, the words I wanted to say trapped in my throat. There was a part of me that still cared, that wanted to believe we could make this work. But there was also a part of me that was too tired, too scarred from all the dismissive comments, the betrayal, and the constant undermining of my dreams. Maybe it's too late, I whispered. Maybe we can't fix this. His eyes darkened, and I could see the frustration building in him. So what? We just end this? Over them? I nodded. I don't know what else there is to say. You didn't stand by me when I needed you most, Marcus. You let them take everything from me. I stood up, feeling my hands shake as I grabbed my bag. I need space. I think we both do. As I walked out the door, I heard him calling my name. I didn't turn back. The song was out there. The recognition was real. But nothing could replace the empty space between me and Marcus, the space I realized had been growing for a long time. I didn't go back to Marcus's apartment that night. I didn't even pack a bag. I just walked for hours. Chicago was cold, sharp, honest. The wind cut across my cheeks, but the sting felt grounding, cleansing, like the universe reminding me that I was still here, still breathing, still mine. By the time I finally reached my tiny rented studio in Ravenswood, the place I kept as a backup, a sanctuary from the Lane family's suffocating expectations, my phone had blown up with missed calls and texts. Half from Marcus, the other half from numbers I didn't know. I ignored all of them. For the first time in a long time, silence felt like oxygen. The public implosion. The next morning, everything erupted. I woke up to a barrage of notifications, trending hashtags, industry mentions, private DMs from journalists and music bloggers. My song wasn't just going viral anymore, it had detonated. North of Kin, cover by @EmmaSwift, official 3.2M views in 12 hours. Who is GS North? Rolling Stone. Online feature teaser, North of Kin, trending worldwide. It felt surreal, dizzying, overwhelming. But the biggest explosion wasn't the music industry. It was the Lanes. Someone had uploaded a video onto social media with the headline, "Was this the dinner where they mocked GS North?" I clicked. The shaky phone footage opened with Bella at the head of the table, wearing a champagne-colored dress and a smug smile. The camera panned to Marcus, then to Denise, then to me. Then I heard it, clear as a bell, echoing through that immaculate dining room. "She's 32 and still spending money on demos. We call her our weekend songwriter." The laughter, Victor's mortgage comment, Denise's smirk, my voice, small and tight, saying, "One day." All of it, captured by Aunt Lorna, the chaotic, distant aunt who filmed everything and posted only half of it. The comments beneath the video were merciless. At Chi-Town Truth. So she was humiliated by them. And then they tried to take her royalties? Yikes. At Music Nerd 92. Bella Lane used the song in an AD without permission? This family is wild. At Real Talk Ramon. The mom reporting Grace to her job is insane. They owe this woman an apology, not a percentage. Someone even created a meme. Music doesn't pay mortgages. Denise Lane, with the screenshot of my bank deposit underneath. It was brutal, it was accurate, and it spread like wildfire. Marcus calls in a panic. My phone rang nonstop until finally, one call broke through from Marcus. I almost declined it, but something, curiosity, closure, made me answer. His voice was frantic. "Grace, please, you need to talk to me. My mom's PR team is freaking out. Bella lost her sponsorship. My job put me on leave to review this whole thing. Can you please come over?" I took a slow breath. I saw the video. "Then you know this is out of control. You need to help us fix this." "Help you?" I laughed, bitter and tired. "Your family mocked me, dismissed me, tried to sue me, reported me to my boss, and now I need to help you." "Grace, be reasonable. This could ruin us." "Marcus," my voice was steady, "you chose your family's comfort over my dignity. That was your decision. This is the consequence." He went silent, then softly, "So that's it?" "That's it." I hung up. The legal reckoning. 2 days later, Marcus's family requested private mediation. They weren't looking to apologize. They were looking to contain the damage. I walked into that mediation room with my entertainment lawyer by my side and a folder so thick it could have doubled as a weapon. Every registration, every timestamp, every contract, every master file, every publishing certificate, neatly organized, undeniable. Denise tried to claim moral rights. Victor argued emotional contribution. Bella claimed she inspired the tone. The lawyer tried to suggest my success was inseparable from the relationship. My lawyer, cool, composed, slid the folder across the table. Everything predates them, she said. Grace wrote, recorded, and registered the song 18 months ago. Case closed. The mediator didn't even take 2 minutes. No legal standing, she said. No financial claims. No percentage. No creative rights. Denise's face drained of color. Bella's lips pressed into a tiny, razor-thin line. Victor muttered something about respect and family loyalty. Marcus wasn't there. He'd texted me earlier. I can't face them today. That told me everything. We signed into mutual non-disparagement agreements. They retracted all workplace complaints, and I walked out of that building feeling lighter than I had in years. The ex-girlfriend with perfect timing. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. A journalist reached out through my manager, Leah Stone, Marcus's ex-girlfriend. No romance drama, no jealousy, just professionalism and a surprising amount of empathy. She'd become an industry reporter and wanted to write an article not about scandal, but about copyright education and how artists often face exploitation from the people closest to them. The article was factual, non-invasive, and devastating without being cruel. She included a single surgical line. Sometimes the greatest threat to an artist's ownership isn't piracy, it's proximity. The public ate it up. The lanes took another hit, and I realized the strange full-circle moment wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. Emma Swift changes everything. That night, before bed, I checked my phone one last time and saw a new notification. Emma Swift has tagged you in a post. My stomach flipped. I opened the video. Emma sat with her guitar, soft golden light behind her, singing North of Kin like she'd pulled the melodies straight from her own memories. Her voice wrapped around my lyrics, turning them into something raw and ethereal. The caption read, "This is the kind of songwriting the industry needs more of. Who is GS North? Let's work." My hands trembled. Not because I was afraid, not because of the lanes, not because of Marcus, but because for the first time in my entire life, I realized the world had finally met me. The real me. And she wasn't small. She wasn't a joke. She wasn't a weekend songwriter. She was someone worth listening to. Someone the world wanted more of.